Hello, welcome back to my course, Worldview Studies. So let me open again my PPT, and I want to summarize what we have done in the previous lecture. So I have explained Buddhism, and I gave you the introduction part, how it started, by whom, and where is this worldview so influential? And also the background, focusing on Shakyamuni and his experience, and he started to organize his disciples to create the Buddhism school and movement. And then I've shown you the symbol of Buddhism, the wheel. There's a small wheel and big wheel. Hinayana is a small wheel, very popular in the southern part of Asia. Whereas Hinayana is also Theravada Buddhism. The other Buddhism is, I mentioned, Mahayana Buddhism, big wheel, is more popular in China, Tibet, Mongolia, Korea, and Japan. About the contents of Buddhism, I first mentioned that the central component of both Mahayana and Hinayana Buddhism is nirvana. And then I explained that in details with the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Paths to achieve it. So I explained that all in detail. And second, samudaya satya is the clear recognition of the cause of suffering. So it's very important why we have suffering in our lives. And Shakyamuni emphasized that. Thirdly, in order to finish and end our suffering, we should stop our desire. And I explained that in detail. The final way to end the suffering is to carry out the Noble Eightfold Paths. It's a very concrete methodology and discipline and practice. So, completion of the Noble Eightfold Path is the annihilation of suffering, and that is the ideal state in which we can have a clear understanding that everything is interdependent. Another important concept is the law, the Dharma. Like Hindu Dharma, it's a very social application, but in the Buddhism, it's more ontologically spoken and explained. And then all the details I explained also the three marks of existence. And then lastly, the karma is a retribution for the deeds of a former life. And I explained that in detail. And also, we have seen the representative websites of Buddhism. There are quite a lot, isn't it? So it means that Buddhism is very popular worldwide. Now, today we want to discuss representative Buddhist thinkers, especially in Korea, because it's very special. The first monk I want to discuss is Won Hyo. In Chinese, we write his name like this, and we pronounce in Korean Won Hyo. So who is he? Well, let me explain first. In Korea, Buddhism was introduced into Shilla, one of the three kingdoms. In the three kingdoms period, it's mainly in southeastern part of Korean peninsula. And then it developed into a brilliant culture, even to the point of being designated as a state religion in the Korea dynasty afterwards. And it also produced many great Buddhist thinkers. Among them, there is a Wonhyo, who was very active at the Shilla period as the most famous master of Mahayana Buddhism, which emphasized the doctrine or non-Zen Buddhism. His idea was so excellent that even acknowledged in China and Japan. He founded the so-called Hwa-Um order. It is known that Wonhyo composed about 100 writings by annotating almost all the Buddhist scriptures that were introduced at the time. However, only 22 copies are now available. And the representative pieces are two commentary on awakening of faith in the Mahayana. In Korean, we say 대승 기신론서, the explication of the Sutra of Diamond, Samadhi, 금강 삼매경론, and the treatise on the harmonious understanding of the 10 doctrinal controversies, 신문화쟁론. In these writings, his core philosophy of harmonization of disputes is well illustrated. He emphasized the idea of interpretation, that all things are harmonized with one another. Furthermore, he developed the idea of essence and function, which denotes the nature and the function of an object. So his theory is called 화쟁론 or 통달사상 and 채용 theory. Now, the second one is Jinul. So, the founder of Zen Buddhism or Hinayana Buddhism is called Master Jinul in the Korea dynasty. This is pronounced in Korean Sunjong. Okay, who is he? He insisted not to reject the Mahayana Buddhism. Instead, he tried to embrace it and harmonize it with Hinayana Buddhism. And so he argued simultaneous or balanced cultivation of meditation and transcendental wisdom. We call it 정해 상수. And then sudden enlightenment is a reminder that the nature of mankind is originally clean and is no different from the Buddha. And then gradual practice is even if that is so, anguish does not disappear easily, and that is why we should steadily make self-discipline. So together we say 돈, 오, 점수. So these two words represent his central idea. In the meantime, he has also written a lot of books like this. From the exposition of the flower garland scripture, in Korean pronunciation, we say 화엄론절요, and many other books, such as here, 권수정해 결사문, 원돈성불론, 간화 결의론, 진심직설, 개초심학입문, 법집별행록, 전료, 병입사기, 화엄, 논, 전료, 염불, 요문, 수심결, 육조해, 능대사, 법보단경발, etc. So, he was very productive, as you can see. At the end of Korea dynasty, he founded the Jogae order, which is now the largest Buddhist denomination in Korea. Now, let me move on to explain the strong and weak points of Buddhism. So, first of all, Buddhism strives to eliminate suffering in our lives while looking deeply into ourselves. One of the ways to eliminate this suffering is Zen. Zen is a kind of Buddhist meditation that claims to help find the nature of Buddha within Buddhists and eliminate suffering. Furthermore, by correcting wrong words, deeds, and thoughts through the Noble Eightfold Paths can be seen as a very positive aspect. Second point, Buddhism pursues an ethical life. The basic principles of Buddhism are to behave morally within society. Especially karma and reincarnation encourage us to live a more moral life than the current life. It is because Buddhists believe that they must pile up good deeds in this world so that they can be born with a better status in their next life. In this regard, Buddhism does not limit the members of believers to a particular nation, race, or class, unlike the caste systems of Hinduism. Number 3, Buddhism respects all living creatures and prohibits killing lives. There are two principles here. One is dependent origination. We call it in Korean 연기. And the other is ahimsa. Dependent origination is that all things are interconnected to each other, and ahimsa is to regard that all life is precious and showing mercy while rejecting violence. So Buddhism's release of captive animals derived from here. Therefore, it is easy to see in India the sight of cows walking on the road as well as the cars waiting for the cows to pass by. Of course, this is also related to Hinduism. Number four, Buddhism is also generous about other religions like Hinduism. And Buddhist worldview is emphasizing self-consciousness, not a belief in one God. Even Buddha is not a god, but merely a great teacher of mankind. So Jesus Christ, Confucius, and Mohammed are regarded as holy saints that attained Buddhahood. So Buddhism does not reject or cause any kind of conflicts between religions. Moreover, there are some similarities to the biblical worldview, even if they acknowledge the authority of the founder or form of a community with believers and develop it. After death, they will be judged as they have done in this world, and either will go to heaven, paradise, or hell. Then, what are weak points of Buddhism? Well, first of all, it denies the existence of a personal God and has a strong pantheistic tendency. So there is no border nor difference between creator and creatures. Therefore, in the case of Korean Buddhism, it is mixed with shamanism very easily that deifies nature. And so in the temple, the Buddhist temple, you can see the building called Pantheon, which means serving many gods, almost 10,000 gods or ghosts. We call it Manshinjan. And this allowed Buddhism to spread without great resistance in Korea. However, it has lost some of its purity during the process of compromising. As a result, some Buddhists try to fulfill their wishes through material offerings. Buddhism, as Latourette pointed out, grew in an Asian culture with strong Hinduism and shamanism, and it chose to coexist with these worldviews. China, Japan, and Korea are the classical examples of this, especially in Korea. Before the introduction of Buddhism, shamanism was the most prevalent worldview. When Buddhism was introduced, it became a mixed with shamanism. As a result, it could not completely overcome shamanism. Furthermore, the fact that countries where Buddhism was strong in Asia became easily communized shows that atheistic Buddhism was not able to resist the communist ideology. How about the second point? Buddhism sees all human desires negatively. So in this worldview, desire is the cause of suffering. So they try to resolve it by suppressing and emptying. Of course, wrong greed leads to sin and destruction. However, there are cases in which we may be motivated to make our lives more moral through good greed. Therefore, under the Buddhist worldview, it will be difficult for innovation to emerge in the industry or for the country to develop economically because any creative activity and production is difficult to come about. Number three, this Buddhist worldview is likely to lack a scientific mind. Even if Buddhism contributed in literature, education, and the arts, it can be said that the Buddhist worldview has limitations in advancing science. This is because Buddhism itself sees the existence of all things as negative and ultimately aims to be liberated from existence itself. Therefore, rational and scientific research on the formation of all things is virtually very difficult or almost impossible. Of course, it refers to the idea of dependent origination. However, this is just a coincidence. As a result, we can almost never see excellent natural scientists who are Buddhists. Number four, the Buddhist view of humanity, which teaches that all creation and life are meaningless, negatively sees the human contribution to history and culture. So it tends to reduce the difference with other creatures by debasing humans. And therefore, it is difficult to contribute to the world because human dignity is weakened. To become a true monk, one must leave the world, so contributing to the world is difficult. So, at the end of the 14th century, Zheng Dozhen, who was a Neo-Confucian scholar, criticized Buddhism for their ultimate destruction of humanity through a book called Arguments Against Mr. Buddha. In Korean, 불시 잡변. Particularly, he points out that one must leave home to become a monk, highlighting the irresponsibility toward the family members left behind. If the father leaves the family that needs to be taken care of and go out alone, all the burden will be on his wife and children, isn't it? In addition, he criticized Buddhism in the end of Korea dynasty because of the problem caused by corrupt Buddhism. So he argued that Neo-Confucianism should be the national ideology of the new Joseon kingdom. In response to this, however, a Buddhist monk named Ki Hwa refuted this by writing a theory to reveal the right way, Hyun Jung Non in Korean, which argued that Buddhism and Confucianism can harmonize with each other. Fifthly, the Buddhist worldview has a very aristocratic element. This is because in Buddhism, salvation is limited to a few monks, especially in the Hinayana Buddhism. So in this Buddhism, it's extremely difficult for the masses to reach nirvana compared to the monks who specialize in spiritual training. Of course, in rebellion against this came Mahayana Buddhism, which has opened the door to the masses. However, the faith of the public was far from the original Buddhist teachings. So, in Southeast Asia, where Hinayana Buddhism is strong, it puts emphasis on monks to practice virtue. And this point is also acknowledged by Buddhist sociologist J. Bunak of Thailand. Nirvana in the Buddhist worldview may be possible idealistically. However, realistically, it seems to be a philosophical and speculative concept that is very difficult to be understood by the public. Therefore, it is almost impossible to achieve this. Although emphasizing the practice of Buddhism as a means of reaching this nirvana, it is difficult to popularize it with many disciplines and taboos. Furthermore, there is some discrimination against women. For example, in the life of the Buddhist female monk, there is a discriminative element compared to the male monk. Now, that is the end of this part, and next time we will talk about alternatives to the weak points of Buddhism. Thank you for your attention, and we will see you next time.